They don't know what it took for me to do that. I mean, I was at a point where nobody believed in it. Nobody was willing to support it. And I never will forget that I walked into the bank and I took a $50,000 line against what we owned, and I did not tell my husband.
Welcome to Invention Stories on YouTube. My name is Robert Baer. I'm your host, and today our interview is with Kedma Ough. This episode was previously shared as episode 58 of the Invention Stories Podcast. Kedma Ough is the Innovation Director and Superhero. July 12, 2018. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Now let's roll. Kedma Ough is the Innovation Director at Mount Hood Community College and Small Business Development Center in Oregon. Under this directive, she supports the Inventors Resource Program, which includes SPAIR and STTR, which are federal innovation grants. That's free money for inventors. We have Kedma on the line from Portland, Oregon, so let's get started. Hey, I learned on the news that most healthy adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night to function at their best. I know that when I don't get enough sleep, I find myself a little short of attention, getting a little cranky, but you're a little bit different. I would like you to share with our listeners your approach to sleep.
I do short periods. I take little mini naps, no different than they have historical documentation that Albert Einstein would follow the same process. The thing about it is that I embrace my insomnia. I think it's amazing. I love it because there's no point fighting it. Like, I think it's so cool because I'm like, whoa, you know what? I get time to imagine and dream and process even while I'm awake because I'm a dreamer. So when I have a hard time sleeping, years and years ago, maybe it would have been a little bit more challenging. But guess what? I got friends all over the world now. So somewhere it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So I can message them. I can connect. I can find out what's going on. And so what my pattern usually is I'll go to sleep for 3 hours. I'll get up for an hour. I'll go back to sleep for about 2 hours. I'll get up for an hour. And then depending on my situation, I may stay up for the rest of the day or maybe take another rest. But it never really makes me grouchy. Like, I'm never upset about it. I've just learned to embrace it and say, this is just how I do things. I still have very high energy. It's just my makeup. And I think, to your point, I'm excited about life. So to me, I can't wait to get up. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening tomorrow?
How about when you're driving? Don't you get tired? Have you ever nodded off while you're driving?
Well, who says that I drive? I'm like driving Miss Kedma. I like to have people drive me. So I don't like to drive a lot, but when I do drive, I'm also dreaming. So I have two things I do when I drive. One is because I'm so busy, my drive time is actually time to connect to people I can't connect to. So I say, listen, you could be on the 8 o'clock shift or you could be on the 4 o'clock shift. So if they're in my rounds, then I will actually make some calls while I'm driving because it gets me, again, I'm focused on the road, but I'm also having my mind stimulated. And then if I'm not doing that, then I'm just listening to music and chilling, but I'm not tired.
Invention Stories on YouTube is sponsored by the Chin-Up Strip Company. We previously have shared our interview with Dale Miller, who invented chin-up strips to ensure he only breathed through his nose while sleeping. No more dry mouth, no more loudmouth snoring. Just imagine waking up feeling better rested. But don't take my word for it. The Chin-Up Strip Company is now offering a free trial pack for you to try for yourself absolutely free, including free shipping in the United States. To order your free trial pack, please visit www.inventionstories.com/free. Are you able to multitask really well?
Absolutely not. My husband loves to say, and I love him to death, that I'm really single-threaded in that concept. Having said that, I'm really good at execution. So I am old school. Actually, I'll show you my cute little red book. Okay. This is my life. I know technology and I know all the gadgets, but you know what? I'm Gen X. I want my red book and I want my lists. And I literally go through my lists every day and I cross it off. And that's how I stay focused. Now, I may have 2 or 3 things happening simultaneously, but just because of phases, I have to wait for someone to respond back. But I generally prefer not to multitask because it's not effective. I'm about execution on one item that's big and then just getting it out of the way.
Now, you're in Portland, Oregon. Is that correct?
I sure am.
Okay. Well, what is it about Portland you love? Because I love
it. Love it, love it. What I love about Portland is, first of all, our slogan, Keep Portland Weird. So when I came out a couple of years ago and I thought, it was in my closet, I was looking at it every morning and I thought, I'm just going to come out. I'm going to finally admit I'm a superhero. It's because I was keeping it inside and I wanted other people to know. And my first debut is I came out in a cape on downtown Portland in the Pearl. And the thing about Portland is nobody cared. People are like, oh, it's another weird Portland person just doing their own thing. And so the thing about Portland is it's kind of like a New York City, but we're not so tied into having to work, because we're really about balance and living the life we want. But you can be anyone you want to be here, and there's no judgment. So that's what I love about Portland. Second thing I love about Portland is we're really entrepreneurial. I don't care what kind of business you want to be. You want to be an inventor. You want to be an inventor of, with technology, whatever it is, there's always a home for you somewhere in Portland. And we're very family driven. We're very community driven. So I love it. I love Portland.
Okay. So how about writing? You do a lot of writing for like Inc. and Entrepreneur. And first of all, let me ask you, have you always liked to write or loved to write or?
So this is good for your audience. So I've written for a while for Entrepreneur. Temporarily stopped because I'm on the book thing right now, right? We're completing our book by February. I honestly do not feel I'm a strong writer, and I'm going to tell you why. English is my second language, and I began to learn and study English when I was 8 years old. And so as a result of that, I'm not comfortable with, the whole grammar and the structure of the sentence. So I really work with editors. So I would say I love to write, but I would say that I am not confident as much as I am as speaking. And one of the things I would kick back to your audience is just know where your strength is and then surround yourself with people who can support you. So even though I have a book coming out, I have a phenomenal co-writer. I am able to build all the research content and the expertise because that's who I am. But she's able to come alongside of me and really ground me on the structure of sentencing, the structure of grammar, so that people like me can bring our message out but not feel intimidated when someone tries to grammar police me. So that's my comment around writing.
Were you a good student in school? Did you get good grades then? Or
I would say I was an average student. I was a quiet student. I was an introvert. I'm still an introvert. I've just learned how to live in an extroverted world. If you were able to go back right now and just take a quick peek into my life when I was a student, I was a loner. I went to school. I did my work. I did sit in the front of the class like most studious students. But, I had to work twice as hard as other people who could just easily get an A. I would be at home studying twice as hard to get that A or that B+. So I'd say I was average.
Why did you have to work twice as hard?
I think, remember, English is my second language. And unfortunately, when I was growing up, a lot of the curriculum really doesn't apply to what I do today. If they had been teaching business, I would have gotten an A+. If they had been teaching sales, I probably would have gotten an A+. But, I wasn't really as interested in history or science. It just didn't get me really excited. One of my traumatic experiences is I had to dissect a pig and I was a vegetarian. I'm like, I don't want to dissect the pig. So I think school was good, but I think I began to thrive in college.
I like that you just said when stuff didn't interest you, you just didn't really totally apply yourself because it's like, yeah, I get that because that was me. One of the things you said, stop trying to make yourself fit a career that's not right for you. Why is that?
Well, let me give you a story. So about 10 years ago, I was hired on to consult for a major financial institution. And I remember giving them a quote that was obscene of what they would pay me, and they agreed to it. So talk about how, because I didn't want to work for them. And I gave them this crazy number, and they're like, oh, okay. Okay. So here I am on a consulting gig working in this financial institution. making an obscene amount of money. And I remember the moment, I remember calling my mom on the phone while I was there. And I'm like, Mom, I can't take it. I mean, I'm stuck in cubicles right now. Nobody's talking to each other. It's so depressing here. And she listened and turned around and said, because she's Irish, she goes, but honey, it's only 7:30 in the morning. I said, I know, and I'm miserable. And I ended up leaving. I quit because I realized, what is my soul worth? When you're in a situation that you absolutely loathe, every minute is torture, right? It's torture. But when you're with something you love, and I see this with inventors and entrepreneurs, they can work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and bring home $500 a month. And they're like, yeah, I'm doing my business. That's what I'm talking about. What is your soul worth? Because all the money in the world, you'll make enough money, you'll pay your bills, and then you're going to be miserable. So you got to find that middle ground.
There's some jobs that I couldn't do for too long, even if they were paying me like filing. Have you ever done a temporary job for filing, like for 8 hours in a day?
Right. So there's going to be jobs, and no matter what the price point is, are you really going to do it?
Do you like Wonder Woman?
Do I like Wonder Woman? I am Wonder Woman. I love Wonder Woman. Everything I am is Wonder Woman.
The new movie, and it just seems like a hit. And why do you think so many people, both men, women, little kids, why do you think they connect with that?
Everybody wants to be a hero. The idea that you can see someone on the screen that is emulating a hero and doing good for the world. You know, we live in this very strange world right now where there's a lot of turmoil. And many of us can't fix the turmoil. You know, we're doing our part. We're trying to make things better. And so we take a few moments and we go and watch a movie. And for 2 hours, we get to feel empowered that maybe there's a part of us inside that can reach greatness and be part of the good. I just happen to have taken that analogy and I've incorporated it into my life. So I ask myself every day, as a superhero, what do I need to do to bring goodness to the world? That's the only difference, is I just took it from a movie screen to real life. And I live by those standards. So I think people are really enamored by that. And that's why you're seeing more and more of these shows where, you know, they depict superheroes, because we all want to be a part of a superhero, but we can't imagine that we ourselves can be one.
You quote that you've helped more than 10,000 individuals fund, launch, and grow their businesses. Financing is such an important element, and I love that you push free money, grants.
Love it. Me too.
How do you know that you've helped over 10,000 people?
Gosh, I've been doing this for 20 years. You know, people talk about what does success look like. Success looks like a lot of work every step of the way. Like, my favorite animal is the turtle. People say, why do you like the turtle so much? I said, because the turtle is slow, it's purposeful, it takes its time. And it always wins the race. Every time you hear about the turtle and the hare, it's the turtle that wins. So I'm methodical. And I have been involved in so many things, presentations, countless hours of nonprofit work. Really, I'm in a life of service. So to me, it's about the tracking. And also I get a lot of feedback from people all the time. I almost have stopped asking for reference on LinkedIn because I think I have close to 100, which is a lot on LinkedIn. So I think I've worked with hundreds of thousands. And so I just took a sampling of the amount of people I've actually worked with, touched, impacted in the last 20 years.
So what is it you focus on?
I focus on target funding, just like target marketing. Everybody knows target marketing, how to position your business based on demographics and psychographics. I do the same thing when it comes to financing. I think that we are misinformed a lot of times. We think funding, first of all, has to be, I've got to get a loan. And I think for inventors, that's just not a reality. I don't know any inventor who's walked into the bank and said, I've got this amazing invention. Can you just give me $100,000? So I think it depends on the invention. I think it depends on the stage of the business. There's many things that I take into account before I make a recommendation. Having said that, one of the funding sources I do look at a lot is SBIR, because I lead the SBIR initiative for the state in terms of the centers we support. And so obviously it's an important vehicle for looking at funding that may help inventors.
Is that what led you to write your book? Isn't it about funding?
It is.
But don't you know that the Kedma Ough story is that's going to be the greatest book? And will that be your second? Or do you anticipate writing the Kedma?
I have a very good relationship with the publisher. And I think one of the things I'm really have gratitude for is I think about Tim Ferriss, who's one of my idols, the 4-Hour Work Week. And he talks about it took 27 rejections for his book to go through. And my book, it took us 18 months to prepare the actual manuscript, but literally we were able to have one amazing book agent review it and take me on as client. And my publisher reviewed it, and within 6 weeks I had a contract. And one of the things they said back to me is, we see you as part of our family for multiple books. And, that, again, that's a lot of, that puts a lot on me on what an incredible compliment for such an, incredible publisher to make that statement. So having said that, I do foresee me being involved in many, many books. I just don't, I don't know exactly what that looks like today.
You work for the Small Business Development Center, and then you have your own business, director of Avita. Okay, yep. Say I'm an inventor, and I just walk in, and they say, "Oh, you need to go talk to Kedma."
Yes.
I got this idea for an invention. I've done nothing. What do you recommend they do?
Well, I would have to ask, what does nothing mean?
They got the dream, but they haven't
They got the dream. Okay. So, first of all, I'm going to do an analysis, right? I want to ask why they're thinking about it, what made them gravitate towards it. Most inventors are actually quite the opposite. They are coming in with everything. Oh, I'm on the 100th proof of concept right now. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, have you thought about actually maybe looking at inquiring around patent or sale? So it's actually the other way around. Most inventors are working too much on their proof of concept or their prototype. But having said that, the first thing I'm going to probably do is have a review on whether or not they're going to pursue any intellectual property. I just had an advising session yesterday with a client who has an interesting idea. We don't know yet whether there's any patent opportunity because we haven't explored it. But unfortunately, the inventor was not aware of the Public Disclosure Act and went ahead and did a pitch and communicated it and shared it with everyone. And so now the clock is already a couple of months behind. So part of my job is I never will kill a dream because that's not who I am. But I'm going to ask about the dream and I'm going to inquire about the dream. And then I'm going to figure out. Now, I will tell people if it's not feasible and why. But first, I'm going to understand where they're at and can I do something to push them through the next stage.
Is there number one reason that inventors overlook?
You mean in terms of them not going to the next stage or what do you mean?
Well, somebody has an idea and maybe they're just crazily working.
So here's my thought, having worked with thousands and thousands of people. I believe that most inventors treat their product like a baby. And what I say to them when they come in my office, I go, look, thank you for bringing me your baby. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're willing to throw your baby right out the window right now, or 10, whatever I say, you're going to love that baby and not listen to me. Where do you stand on that scale? Most people are going to give me a number between 5 to 7. If someone gives me a 9 or 10, I tell them I'm very concerned. Because when you give me a 9 or 10, you are no longer objective. You are so emotionally tied to the baby that you can't step away and really get some good counsel. And so we need to explore what that means. So even for my own baby, because I am an inventor, I'm working on an invention right now, I have to step away and say, okay, I'm in counsel with someone who may know more than me. I'm going to bring it down to a 7 so I can pay attention and see where I may need to pivot.
To me, the patent process seems so convoluted and so messed up. It seems like it takes forever and you spend a lot of money. And even if you get your patent, somebody could just sit there infringing on your patent. And if you don't have a ton of money to fight them in court, which most small inventors don't, you're going to, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's like, wow, there's this perception that my patent's protecting me, but it's not really doing a whole lot of anything. Do you think that the patent process should be modified, or should there be an alternative today that like maybe some of the brightest and most caring minds in the invention world could get together and say, let's create our own system? Or do you think that it needs to be just revised, or what would you do if you were in charge?
That's a tough question. And certainly there'll probably be more people. I'm thinking about Gene Quinn right now, who is really about, as you know, he's really about the advocacy of inventors, and certain Warren Tuttle, of course. There's many other people that I would put in there that are more influential in that positioning. Having said that, my primary concern is to protect the inventor. And right now, as you know, and many of us who are in the inventor world know, we're having a huge issue where we've had hardworking inventors who have spent time and money and have filed a patent. The patent has been issued, the sales are out, and then right behind them comes along someone as a company who infringes, right? And then, as you know, what happens is they go and say, well, you're filing, we're in an infringement because I have a patent. And the company says, this is not an infringement. You should have never gotten the patent. And what are they doing? They're now challenging that the patent should have never been issued. And they're, in some cases, keeping them in court where they're investing millions of dollars just to try to save their patent. I think that there has to be more advocacy to protect the inventor, because when you have large companies that are going after patents in that way, it waters down the effect of the patent. And yes, to your point, the patent is not the end all be all, because it's not about having the patent issued. It's how can you defend the patent. Having said that, most inventors, as you know, love licensing, as I do. I am like Mrs. Kevin. So if you've seen Shark Tank, many people can't stand Kevin because all Kevin wants to do is licensing. And if he doesn't like you, he says, you're dead to me. Well, I love Kevin because I love licensing. And having said that, if you're looking at licensing, you're probably going to be in a better position when you're patent pending and looking at a utility patent, because you're trying to woo that manufacturer as opposed to, trying to get a licensing deal without that. So that's my opinion. There's certain colleagues I work with that are, may disagree, but having worked with many companies and individuals who've gotten licensing deals, having a patent or patent pending is, again, it's another tool in your tool belt to woo them for a licensing deal.
When you look at Stephen Key, you look at Quirky, which has completely changed their model, manufacturing their own to a licensing model. And then you have Edison Nation, which is
Lewis.
A licensing model. You're saying, yeah, go for the licensing model. If I were to pursue an idea, I would pursue it with the hopes of getting a licensing deal. Doesn't that just tell you that's really wrong with the actual patent process?
So here's what I would say. The licensing model works if you're looking at something where it's just too costly to bring to market or the liability is too high. I've worked with a couple of people in the last year since the major incidences with all the shootings that are happening, unfortunately, with in the movie theater and with schools. There's a couple of companies that are looking at finding solutions. And so the question then becomes, should they bring that kind of product to the market where they're going to have risk involved, liability involved, they're working with kids? That's a lot of cost to bring to the market, as opposed to, you know what, I'm going to have this great concept, file that patent, strengthen those claims, have a proof of concept, and then find a company in the space that has that power to bring that to the market. So again, it's a strategy. It really, really depends on where you're at.
What do you think about crowdfunding?
I love crowdfunding. Actually, one of my clients last month just raised $75,000 on crowdfunding for a product for females. It's an inventor, a female inventor. who decided to go to crowdfunding because she believed that the public would hear and see the value of it. And the public spoke. And so she is right now in the development stage to bring those products to the market. So again, I think it works depending on what your product is and what crowdfunding platform you're targeting. People always talk about Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but there's over 200 platforms. So maybe Kickstarter is not the right one. Maybe Indiegogo is not the right one. So as long as you're paying attention to why you're choosing that funding stream, I think it could work in your favor.
Would you recommend they have a provisional patent before going on there? Because one of the things that I've been hearing is that other people and companies monitor, like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and they see something that's really kind of striking a chord or getting a lot of funding, and they just immediately start to knock that off. You're just telling everybody, hey, this is a great idea.
I am not going to lie to you. You are absolutely right. Unfortunately, we are having a lot of companies trolling those because what they're doing is they're seeing the product, and what they're doing is they're paying attention to how quickly they're able to raise the money. And if it's something it's hot, as Lori would say, it's not a zero, it's a hero. They're going right into production, and they're selling out those products even before the inventor is able to produce it. I think this really goes back to legislation. I think this really goes back to what my first comment. If I ever decide to run for office, one of the platforms I will run on is innovation and protecting our inventors, because this is exactly what the problem is. We have laws, but the laws are not enforced in such a way that protects the inventors. And I think it's just back to legislation issues. So it's a big problem.
The inventor is the person who sees a problem in society, putting their time, money, love, effort into solving that problem. In the meantime, they're creating jobs, and yet they don't get any love. They're constantly being preyed upon by con artists, and even the laws of our country seem to not be helping them out. Why do you think that is? I mean, and what can we do?
That's a tough question, my friend. I think that there are definitely lobbyists, and their job is to protect the interests of large corporations. And the idea of positioning ourselves, there are many companies right now that are spending millions of dollars to protect concepts in the IP world well before even the industry is developed. I think we need more inventor superheroes in legislation. I have to be honest. I think we need more lawmakers who are involved and understand it. I think the United Inventors Association is doing their part. I will give them a lot of credit because they're trying to work closely with the U.S. Patent Office. I know Warren has tirelessly worked with trying to influence and support and educate. But again, the UIA is not a 501c6. They're not a lobbying organization. And so you bring up a really tough conversation. I would tell you there's a problem, and I don't know if the solution's been here yet. I think it's not here yet, and I hope in my lifetime we can solve it because we want to save the American dream. I can't say that enough. We want to save the American dream. There's nothing more powerful than hearing someone's story from rags to riches. Nobody wants to hear, Dad gave me $1 million and I was able to bring this invention to the market. That's not exciting, right? Nobody wants that. People love the American dream of, I came here with $10 in my pocket and I was able to bring something to the market and change my life. That's the American dream.
What other programs or websites do you recommend that would be really useful or helpful to inventors?
Well, of course, I can't, I have to plug the United Inventors Association. United, also obviously the U.S. Patent Office, the small business development centers, because there's one in every single state. There's multiple. And what I love about the SBDC is it's no cost advising, but you have high quality experts that are doing their part to really make a difference and support inventors. I would say the other one is Stephen Key has launched the IGA program, the Inventors Groups of America. And I know that he was recently at the Patent Office doing a whole session on that. And I think again, the influencers in our community, in the inventor world, are trying desperately to get us all together. And maybe that's part of the influence. Maybe that's part of the lobbying, is that we come together. We're not in silo. We're not sitting in a garage or at home. We come together so that we have a stronger message because we're stronger. So I'd say those are the resources. And then you mentioned Shark Tank. I don't watch a lot of TV because I'm too busy inventing or coming up with ideas. So I think you want a niche. So whatever your invention is, niche it to your tribe, right? You know, if your focus is around architecture, are you part of the architecture group? If your focus is around hardware, are you part of the hardware group? So I like to have people do their research, but have it niche to whatever their focus is.
You did a video, it's called The Right Thing for the Right Reason. And I wanted you to explain what that meant.
Well, I think that as human beings, we sometimes set ourselves up. It's like the mask, right? We all have this mask that we show the world. And in that mask, we may be doing the right thing because it's socially acceptable. We want to look good. We want kudos. And that's like doing the right thing. But the question is are you doing it for the right reason? Are you committed to it? Is your heart there? Are you willing to fight if it doesn't go well? And that's what I mean about the right reason, because I have proven over and over again in the world of innovation, in the world of entrepreneurship, in the world of inventorship, when I've come across the toughest situation, I'm willing to fight for everything I am to support the innovation world. And I've done it. You know, you mentioned before the SBIR, STTR. What people don't realize is in 2012, I brought that to Oregon, but they don't know the backstory. They don't know what it took for me to do that. I mean, I was at a point where nobody believed in it. Nobody was willing to support it. And I never will forget that I walked into the bank and I took a $50,000 line against what we owned. And I did not tell my husband. I did not tell my husband. And I remember thinking, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill me because he's going to think I'm the craziest woman ever. Why would I do this? Why would I risk that much money? And I never will forget that I said to myself before I went in and took that out, I said, if I don't put myself out there, then how can I say to someone else to put themselves out there, right? I have to be willing to put everything I am into what I believe in. And so that's what I mean. It's doing the right thing, which a lot of people do, but maybe they don't have that right reason. Maybe they're not in it for the haul, in it for the game, in it as a warrior. And that's what I mean by that.
But I thought what was really brilliant, you took people from every different age group, your whole team bringing so many different things to the table to accomplish this goal of raising $300,000.
Yeah.
You don't really get into the details in the video of how you raised the $300,000. I mean, you mentioned that you were selling booths to the people who were kind of interested but didn't want to give you the big money. How did you actually make that?
That was one of the biggest ways we did it. We really did a numbers to figure out how many booths we needed to sell. And then from there, we could start building more sponsors. And it was just literally kickstarting it so everybody could get excited. And when I decided to bring my team, I actually believed in generational diversity because the baby boomers, they're really good at that front facing and dealing with people. And so are the Gen X. But the millennials, they want to be on social media. They want to do the internet. And so what I did is I built a dream team based on generational strength. Because I knew we could all come together and believe in a mission and bypass all these challenges we often hear with, well, we don't get millennials and we don't get Gen X and we don't get baby boomers. Is to say, guys, we can all believe in one mission and use our strengths to bring it to the market. And that's what I did. And that's what happened. So it was a win.
Thank you for sharing on the Invention Stories podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. And I just look forward, if anybody wants to reach me, I'm sure you'll put a contact or absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn because I do all my messaging on LinkedIn. And so I'm really approachable. So if they need to reach out to me.